Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Kristen.
Welcome, everybody, to our first podcast of Arbor. We are officially launching with our first interview of Claire Spooner of Lucy Claire Spooner's studios.
And it was a really, in my opinion, just like such a great episode of like hearing her story. And you'll hear in the podcast that I've known Claire since about seventh grade. We went to middle school, a little bit of high school together. I've always kind of kept in contact with Claire, and she has painted a lot of pictures of my dogs, Kristen's dogs. Kristen has some other
We
oyster
had her do, I
things.
think, a Mother's Day and Father's Day
Oh, that's
thing.
right. Yeah, we did do a Mother's Day and a Father's Day one.
We honestly are just big fans of her
Yeah.
regardless. Like, if I had seen her art, I don't know, in a studio somewhere, I would have loved it. I just love her style.
Yeah. And, interviewing her, obviously knowing her, it makes it like such a great interview just because we know a little bit of her background story. But I would say there was so much of her story in the sense of, how she even got into art full time. I always thought it was something that she like always had a plan to do. But when you hear the episode, it's more of like, life just kind of happened and it just was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
That was kind
And
of
kind
my
of like it was
takeaway,
always
unless you
inside of
had
her.
something different.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah.
I thought it was,
Yeah.
I didn't, I mean, I just never really, I mean, obviously I was a little bit older than you guys. Didn't you, when you were a kid, how much are you paying attention to like your sister's friends, like likes and dislikes
Yeah.
necessarily?
We
I
were
can't
all
say it was.
we were all very selfish during those time periods. I was not thinking about
It's
you.
just,
You were not thinking about me.
we were living.
Right.
So anyways, yeah, I didn't really know how she got where she was. I just knew one day saw her art and was like, I need that. It's amazing. It's inspiring. It
Mhm.
literally brightens up my home whenever I see like one of her pictures around. So
Yeah.
it was awesome and inspiring about how she just did it. So I
Yeah.
think
And
everyone's
not
going
only
to
does she
enjoy it.
brighten up our homes, like she obviously brightens up everybody else's homes. And, I have two pictures that she painted of my two dogs, Merle and Carly. That every day I look at them and I'm just like, I love those dogs, love those
I
paintings.
know. So
So,
cute. Well, now everyone has a little,
yeah.
preview about what this show is about. And moving forward, we'll use this time as just a little catch up, what's going on, and a little preview of whatever the topic we're talking about the week and who we interviewed and
Yeah.
what to kind of, I don't know, just a recap and get people excited about
Yeah, and a little like
who
what
we're
to
talking
expect in
to.
the episode. Like what are you going to be listening to?
Yeah.
And this episode, I think even for people who aren't into art, if art isn't your thing, which is totally fine, it's not everyone's thing, that I think her journey can inspire a lot of people in the sense of if you want to get out of your conventional 9 to 5 job or have always had a deep desire to do something different, I think that her journey is one gives you a little bit of a guidebook, two is inspiring.
Yeah. And that to really go after whatever's inside of you, however you can. Like, I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
sacrifice to get where she was. It wasn't like snap, you're there. So I thought it
Yeah.
was inspiring on so
So I
many
think in
fronts.
this, yeah, and in the sense of like what this podcast is about, it's like filling gaps in society and filling a hole that like she's definitely leading by example of like you should go after your desires and wherever your desires are, like where your basically like where your skill set lies, I think matches up with your desire and the gap you're supposed to fill in society. And I think that
Yeah.
she kind of follows that really well.
Oh, no, absolutely. And that, I would argue that art really does play a role in everyone's lives, even if you don't realize it.
It's
You know,
cerulean blue.
I was going to literally quote The Devil Wears Prada.
You grab that sweater out of a box that was chosen for you. That'll be
Andrea.
all.
Now everyone's going to go watch The Devil Wears Prada one more time because it's a classic.
You led me there. That was not my fault.
Honestly, I was thinking it. Let us know your thoughts, feedback, like, share, like rate us, and we'll have all of Claire's contact and studio information in the show notes so that everybody can, spread the word, buy some of her paintings, tell people about her. She's fantastic.
Follow her on
Can't wait for you guys to hear
Instagram.
it.
She spends her summers in the south of France. It's always kind of a fun journey to follow along with.
Super jealous, super cool.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, well, enjoy the episode, and it's our first one. So here we go.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hello, welcome to Arbor in our first exciting episode. We're so excited. I'm Kristen McCon here with
Lauren Hansen, and we have Claire from Lucy Claire Spooner. And we're so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me, ladies.
Yes. So Claire is an artist based in New York City. Claire, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what you're currently up to?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me,
Of course.
gals. So I'm Claire. I, as you said, live in New York City. I grew up in Williamsburg, which is how I met you two. And Virginia, not Brooklyn. Important distinction.
Clarification.
Yes, clarification. Before Williamsburg, I spent 8, 9 years in Saudi Arabia. I was born in Houston, moved to Saudi when I was 2 months old. Spent a lot of time, my 8 and through second grade. I came back to Williamsburg to go into third grade. Third through 12th in Williamsburg, went to UVA for college, and then moved to the city immediately after. I can go into how my childhood influenced my artistic life too, of course. Then I started working in interior design when I was right out of college. Did that for a couple of years for a great firm. And then it was time for me to change firms. And rather than just jumping right into the next one, I took 3 months, saved my babysitting money, and took 3 months sabbatical, basically, in between jobs. And I went to this fantastic art school in the south of France where I really learned to paint. I had always made things. My grandfather was an artist.
Is that still part of your sort of your art professional practice to go? Because I know you spend a good amount of time in the south of France. So do you still incorporate that?
Yeah, I go back every summer.
That's amazing.
Say again?
I said that's amazing.
Thank you. It is amazing. It feels very amazing to me. I'm leaving in like 3 weeks. I have a lot to do before then.
Jealous.
It's a good life.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I really learned to paint then. When I was 25, came back to the city, worked for another couple of years for another design firm, and then I was painting nights and weekends, starting to sell work without putting a lot of marketing effort in. People were kind of asking here and there, and looked at my numbers, and I realized I was making the same from not trying to sell my work as I was from my salary job. I wasn't making very much at my salary job, to be clear.
Right.
But I left that design firm in 2019, and I've been full-time since. Here we are.
That is amazing. And Claire, obviously, I have an unfair advantage because I've known you since middle school. Um, but really like to kind of dive into, you have taken such, in my opinion, an inspiring career path. Like, you have inspired me. Obviously, I know you and I follow you on Instagram, and you have taken kind of this very independent, this career path that I really haven't seen anyone take. And, going from UVA, kind of doing what, a normal kind of like, you went to school, you did the thing. And what would be the advice, and kind of what was your thought process of being like, I don't have to have a 9-to-5 job. Like, I can go after my desires. what's kind of your take on the thought process and how you get from going to college, working at a firm, and being like, I believe in myself enough and I believe in my talent enough that I can take this and really be something. So, kind of walk us through your thought process and how you would advise other people if they have this, a talent and a desire to do something, to being like, if I want to monetize this, how would I believe in myself and how would I go there?
Totally. Number one, I'm an only child, and I am to a fault independent. Like I am. That's like just one thing as a person. I also like I've never been able to be anywhere at 9 o'clock in the morning. Like I could never be on, I was perpetually late to my 9 to 5. So that was also another, you know, I'm kind of joking, but really, I don't think I ever was there at 9.
Right, right.
Um, but, um, I mean, I had great role models. My grandparents. Did you know the toy maker of Williamsburg on Merchant Square?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was my grandfather, my grandparents'
Oh, I
street.
didn't know that.
Oh,
And then my aunt had it after, like, anyway. But they ran that, owned it for since like 1960 or something. They
wow.
had it for a long time. Um, and my uncle, so this is all on my mom's side. My uncle has his own business. My mom now has her own business, Good Girl Millie Cards,
Which we love.
Which we
which
We're
love.
y'all,
fans of as
which y'all know
well.
and
Put a
love.
little shout out to that.
Yeah, couldn't do this without a shout out for Good Girl Millie.
Right.
And then my dad worked for a major, huge corporation, but had his own firm when he was like retired from the oil company, which is why we were in Saudi and then came back to the States. But yeah, and then he had his own firm. So I had all these really great models of working for yourself, and I I'm trying to figure out how to like put this articulately because my thoughts are all over the place. Um, but like while I was, so I always babysat growing up. I always was doing like extra yard work to earn money. Not really yard work, but like walking
Chores,
dogs,
whatever.
Right.
chores,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Always trying to
Right.
earn extra money. Um, and like my mom and I would do little like make things and have like a party for people to come over and buy stuff, like that kind of thing. Um, and then when I had my interior design jobs, I was always babysitting. I mean, like my first job, because I made like no money.
Right.
Right.
I had I I babysat for like 20 or 30 hours a week on top of it,
Wow.
and
Right.
had like another like an interior design project of my own on the side. So I think it's called hustling. Um,
The
but
entrepreneurial spirit was always there, essentially. Like
yes,
it was something
totally.
you saw, it was modeled, and then you were like, this is all I know to do. Even if it's not given to me, you're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah, and I think what I really love about like I don't know the working world is that there's so many ways to make a living. Like if you market yourself well, if you I have a sign in my bathroom in Williamsburg. It says, "Work hard, be kind, and amazing things will happen." And it's very true. It's like if you kind of like put your head down and are a good person, and you, yeah, work hard,
Right.
then you really can make a living. And also, importantly, when I was making the jump to start painting full time, I had 6 months savings, thanks to all of the other jobs that I'd been doing.
Right.
And I budgeted. Like I didn't belonged to a gym for years because
Right.
I said I'll work out in my own apartment. I didn't
Right.
go to Soul Cycle and brunch when my friends were going to Soul Cycle and brunch. I didn't get the share house in the Hamptons, blah blah blah. I mean, those are little, like, it seems like I was saving. This is like really the tangible thing. Like if
Right.
you
Right.
really really want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go to Soul Cycle and brunch. I wanted to have a share house in the Hamptons, but more, I wanted to save my money, and I added it up at one point, a couple years ago because I was, feeling a little bit sorry for myself that I missed out on that
Right.
fun time in my 20s. But I realized that the savings that I had from not doing those things were what let me go and leave and start my own
Like
business.
give you real
Yeah.
freedom in life.
Yeah.
And now
I'm
you get
not
to spend your summers in France,
now
like
it's my business.
exactly, like those sacrifices do pay off in the
I
end.
will argue, I'm gonna say France is better than the Hamptons in a
I would
share
say that
house.
as well.
I say so too. I will say though, I think the Hamptons share house is one that I'm like, gosh,
Mm,
those girls made some great friends.
Yeah.
There's like, you never know who you're going to meet out there. That one I do kind of wish I'd
Yeah.
been had a bit more foresight, um, but I didn't really have. It's not cheap to go
Right.
out, obviously. Anyway,
No, right.
but the real like the real way that I was able to do it is that I saved my money. I was very strict with myself. I ate rice and beans. I mean,
right.
I would go out to dinner too, but I would eat rice and beans when I was at home. Packed my lunch, blah blah blah. Like it's
Right.
really not sexy. It's
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I kept my grocery bill, I think, to like $100 a month. Like
Yeah.
I spent
Wow.
no money really, and I wasn't starving either. I mean,
Right.
I really like it's not sexy, but it's just the kind of
Grit
the
and hard work and
Yeah.
discipline to say this is what I want.
yeah, yeah. I definitely spend more than $100 a month now on groceries, to be
Yeah.
clear.
Well, now
Um,
you have, I mean, you have quite a following. You have, you, I from the outside, obviously, I don't know, like a very thriving art business. Where did you, like, what was the path to that? Was it social media? Was it events? Or was it a combo? Or how did you get from, okay, I've jumped off, I am selling some things in the city to my friends here and there, but was there a business plan to move forward? And sort of what was your ethos of like the art you're producing at the same time? Like, I'm sure you have this like entrepreneurial business mind that you're operating, and then this other mind of like, I'm a creative person and I am creating this art, and how that weaves into the business maybe.
where did the two meet? This is the constant struggle for me, is keeping the purity of the art and like the sacredness of the craft and the practice and making a living.
Right.
And it's, so I went to this fantastic school in the south of France. I have to give a shout out. It's called the Leo Marchut's School of Painting and Drawing. And there we were out in the fields painting the landscape, the mountain that Cezanne painted. We're reading Flannery O'Connor and Dante and
Wow.
Van Gogh's letters. And, you know, I'm like painting from dawn till dusk. I was I couldn't get enough. And there was not a thought of selling. Because I was going back to the city after I was going to go
Right.
work again. I was not ever thinking I would be a professional artist. That's not, I cannot tell you how far from my
Right.
mind that was. It was, they call them like Sunday painters, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like it's a hobbyist,
Yeah,
basically. It was a
absolutely.
passion, a true passion. It is a true passion still, but I thought I was going to have my own interior design firm. That's
Right.
the path I was on. Um, and then I think a couple things happened. I was at my alma mater, EVA, and I painted the rotunda, which is the main building. And I saw on the UVA website or Instagram that they had posted somebody's painting of a rotunda. And I said, hey, I painted the rotunda. Here it is.
You should post that too.
You can post it if you wanna.
Right.
And so I checked my Instagram one morning, and I had all these new followers, new requests, messages, whatever, and UVA had posted my rotunda. And I was on the Metro North to a project in Greenwich with my firm, and at the time, I would take notes on my phone during the meetings with the clients. And so I was acting like I was taking notes on my phone, and the entire time, like for hours, I was just responding to messages on Instagram, making up like in live time how much like the painting would
That's
cost.
amazing.
Wow.
And because I was like, I can do this, like, sure, I'll sell that painting, but I can make more paintings of the rotunda. Like,
Right.
I can just keep making them. And someone was like, could you do it in a 9x12? Could you do it in a 4x6? Could you do? I'm like, absolutely.
Sure.
Whatever you want.
Right.
So that, I mean, dozens of paintings. I made so many just from that one post. That was like in June of 2018. And it was time for me to move on from that job. It was, I was, I wasn't loving the field anymore. I was I'd been wanting to work for myself anyway. Frankly, I'd been waiting to have enough savings to be able to leave and go do my own thing. Wasn't really thinking it could be art, but like painting, but like I could do some of that. I had a great mentor a few years prior had said, like, always have multiple income streams. So, it's obvious, but it's so true. And so after that, I like did an art fair, Occasion for the Arts in Williamsburg, and one weekend I made more than like 2 months of my salary job.
Right.
And then that was in October. So June, the UVA thing, October, Occasion for the Arts, and then in November, December, I think I like painted the family dog, and I posted it on my Instagram, and people were like, oh, could you paint my dog? Could you paint my cat? Could you paint my kids? Could you paint me for my wedding? Could I blah, 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 blah. And that was where I really learned that people will, there's a market there.
I think that's probably when we popped
And
in
when
and said, can you paint our dogs? Because I know we all have.
Totally.
I mean, I will say I don't know if you can see, but I have a Lucy Clare Spooner original right behind me right now, which is, I think, I remember seeing it, and I can't remember if it was on Instagram or if it was at the Occasion of Arts or what it was, and I was like, I have to have it, especially growing up where we grew up, and it's just so tidewater and coastal and the whole thing. And so anyways, again, obviously we're big fans of the work you produce, and I think when you said that, I'm like, I think I definitely was one of those people popping in your Instagram being like,
both were.
here's my dog.
Well, I loved it. It was so affirming, and it was one of those things where I kind of like looked at my numbers, and I'm like, can I like, yeah. And also, one thing that just cracks me up is that the Occasion for the Arts, that art fair remains one of my best weekends ever.
Wow.
Like I've continued to do those art fairs, but I was thinking that was typical. And it was not. And that's okay. It's great that it happened. I would love for that to be. Now I actually have kind of caught up to that level again, but like the first few years I was like, oh, the normal weekend is actually like half or a third of this, but that's okay.
Right.
And then I kind of like, I kind of did my budget out. And like I said, it's not sexy. So much of it was like, how much do I have? I really wanted to have a year's salary in the bank, but I also was really ready to leave my job. So I settled for 6 months. And I also said, listen, I'm still employable. If this totally fails, which it won't, because I'm so motivated not to go back to work for anyone but myself. But if it does fail, or if I can't make my numbers or something happens, whatever, I'll just get another job. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Right.
I'm not making myself totally unemployable. Just anyway. So that was very reassuring. And right at the beginning, I lined up all these different events. So I had like a little opening at 2 different
I'm really
stores.
sorry. Let's just stop. I'm really sorry.
So I had, I lined up some things. I had 2 stores that did little opening kind of things for me. I think I, like for my first 8 weeks after I left my job, I think I had like 6 events lined up ahead of time.
Wow.
And I did that really purposefully. And this was in 2019. Instagram was definitely a thing, but it wasn't, people weren't doing like the big, I'm, I have left my job and I'm launching my business. If
Right.
they did, I didn't recognize it. We were really kind of still sharing. It wasn't so curated, and it wasn't so much of a thing as it is now. Now, if I were leaving a job to start my own business, I would do like a big old launch thing of some
Right.
sort, host a party. I don't know. But I just kind of was like, okay, I don't even know that I ever told anybody that I was going full time, because I don't think maybe I ever said that I wasn't full time
Right.
already. So, and then this really magical thing happens, that the world makes space for you. And it is, I talked to a lot of people who are thinking about moving from from a full time salary job. I say full time job just meaning salary job, because I definitely work a lot more now than I did when I had a salary job.
Right.
But the world just makes room. It's amazing. It's like, when you've shown that you're committed, it's like people say, okay, now I've been thinking about getting a painting. I see that she's full time. She's committed, so I'm gonna commit. They see that maybe, do you want to do a pop up? Do you want to come and do this? Do you want to hang your work in the store or the restaurant or the hair salon, whatever? And these opportunities kind of start coming, and I often notice that they come like in groups. Like right now, I've had like a few things kind of happen at once. I couldn't tell you what they are, but they are happening. I
Right.
can't remember exact examples, but like the restaurant downstairs, I was just walking by and they had just painted the walls, and the owner's like, Claire, I need a piece to go here. What do you have? And I just happened, I never would normally have brought this piece back with me from Williamsburg, but I just happened to have a huge piece in my apartment that I thought I was going to be showing for something else, and that fell through. And I'm like, actually, I have something that might work perfectly, and now it's hung up in the
It's
restaurant.
amazing.
So fun. Yeah.
And honestly, like, I love hearing your story. Like, I'm a big believer in manifesting, and like listening to your story, kind of going from working from an interior design firm to working for yourself. Like, what really comes through is like your unique person, and how you really have this like deep sense of self, where you're like, I know I'm going to bet on myself, and whatever happens, like, I'm coming out ahead. And then it's like, once you made that bet on yourself, then the world followed suit. Like, the universe kind of met you there and was like, here's opportunities, here's things, which I think is so inspirational to myself, and I believe other people, that, you know, like, you kind of like lead the path and being like, I believed in myself. And yeah, as you said, there's multiple parts that are not sexy about it. There's multiple parts of beans on toast and beans and rice and, you know, those things. But then there are these parts of it where you're like, it was worth it, and I'm being myself, and I'm making a difference in the world, and people are seeing that, even if they don't want to be an artist, even if, you know, their dream is to be a race car driver, and it's like, oh, I could go, if I bet on myself, yeah, there's going to be these parts that are, you know, mundane and monotonous, and yeah, I have to make sacrifices, but if Claire can do it, why couldn't I do it? You know, and I think that that's such a unique thing that doesn't happen a lot in this world, especially following with like a world of Instagram where like a lot of people look like copies of each other, where it's like, you really do stand out. And I really, like, for myself, it's really inspirational for me to it being like, oh, like, she can do it, like, why couldn't anybody else? So like, you know, I think that that's such a great part of your journey, and I think there is this deep sense of like, you're like, I believe in myself, and I think that comes through in your paintings, it comes through and just kind of how you do your life. So I think it's very, very inspirational.
Absolutely. And I would say too, just to follow up, you do have a very, and maybe we can talk a bit about that. I think you have a very unique style in painting, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, sort of how I know you do other like different mediums. I know you have a lot of watercolor. I know you do some acrylic and potentially oils, like, and obviously you speak to it, but you definitely have a specific, like, as a novice artist, like just someone who really loves art, I would say like brushstroke and look and where you could almost be like, oh yeah, I think that's a Lucy Claire Spooner Studios piece. There are certain characteristics of your work. How did you develop that, and how, you know, where does that come from, your inspiration, etc.?
Thank you. So y'all are so dear. So um, the, I mean, so I work in watercolor and oil. I actually don't really work
Okay.
in acrylic, but um, for no reason other than I just don't. No,
That's what you
whatever.
do, right?
Yeah. Um, but oil and acrylic looks really similar, so I see that confusion.
Right.
The honestly, people ask this a lot about how did I get my style, blah blah blah. It just is. It's just
Mhm.
like my handwriting is my handwriting.
Right.
Um, and it's changed over time for sure. Like it's evolved, rather. I wouldn't really say it's changed. I have never set out to like make it look a certain way. When I've been influenced for sure. So
Mhm.
like I study a lot, like with the school in the south of France, Marchutes. We study a lot of the masters. So I've studied a lot of, especially like the French impressionists to post impressionists, Monet, Cezanne, Van Gogh, Matisse, um, Giacometti, even. And so I notice when I'm really studying, and like that's with the school. I also love a whole list of other artists, but
Right.
I'll notice when I'm especially studying an artist, which is a really important part of my practice. Um, and like we were touching a little bit on earlier, how to like have the money making side and the practice, like the sacredness of the practice side.
Right.
One thing that I do to keep that part sacred now is go set aside really devoted time to just be painting in the like in the south of France in the summer. And like no, I don't do any custom work while I'm there. I hardly answer any emails. I do like basically no admin whatsoever. I'm
Mhm.
just out painting. And then, and I try to do that also when I'm like in my regular daily life, but sometimes like one thing leads to another. I get caught up
Right.
in something else. But that really is where I I notice where like my style will evolve, and where I really will grow is when I'm able to be spending a lot of time with just the paints and looking and studying the masters, whether it's in a book and I'm making copies, as in like making drawings or paintings, um, or in the museums. Like that is, to me, it's the most important, and that is how I learned to paint with marchutes, and then I taught myself watercolor. I learned to
Oh,
paint in
wow.
oil with marchutes, and I taught myself
Okay.
watercolor.
Wow, that's so interesting. So it
Does
really
that
is.
answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's like handwriting. Like it just comes as you do
Yes.
what you do, and yeah, you get influenced, like you would anything as you're learning. But really, your style is inside of you, and it's just the
Yeah.
fullest expression of yourself.
Yeah. I really liken it to handwriting because, like, you can change your handwriting. You can
Right.
make your handwriting be like somebody else's, whatever. But when you're like just jotting down a note, like, it's just
That's
going to
what
be
it
what
is.
comes out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, you can change it. You can be influenced by other things. And, like in fifth grade, I made my E's like this. And now I make my
Mm.
E's like this.
Right.
Um, And when I was making my E's like that, it was, that E that with like the one that's like
Right.
this, like the
Mm.
we all did it. That really was my handwriting for a while.
Right.
But now it's just like the whatever, and I can do different things with it. But kind of like the truest expression is like it's
Right.
what
It's
I
like
got it
you
for
don't
now.
actually have to think much of it. It's just
Right.
what comes out. So
Right.
that's really, I mean, just
And
as
there's a
a
beauty in it. People, like, I have horrible handwriting a lot of the time. Um, People will say, "Oh, well, I can't draw, I can't paint because it doesn't look like yours." I said, "Well, good. I hope
right.
not. It's
Right.
not mine. It's yours. I don't care if you try to look like me, but it's gonna look better if you try to look like you. It's gonna be um, your expression of yourself
Right.
coming through, and that is the beauty of it. I mean, I don't care if you copy.
Right.
Um, I I copy painters all the time. I borrow from painters all the time. Not copy so much, but I borrow from painters all the time. From the masters, I'll take a little something from one painter and see like a composition that I think is really interesting, but it's never going to be them. It's me who's
Right.
doing it and adding things in.
Which I think is so great about your art. Like you can tell, like when you see your art, like it's just super unique to you. And I remember seeing on your Instagram stories, you did this really interesting thing where you were painting a flower. You were in New York and you were painting a flower, and you were like, oh, it really just wasn't sitting the way that you wanted it to. And then you sat in it and like kept repainting it or kept redoing it. I'm forgetting exactly what the story was, but it was like you were like, "Oh, I can paint this in a couple different ways. I'm not going on to like another subject because this flower has so many different ways to be painted." And
Yeah.
I thought that that was such a beautiful process that you had as you were like, "Yes, I might have painted this flower before, but it's different today." And I thought that that was so amazing.
Thank you. That was like a month ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It was
Yeah, yeah,
pretty
yeah.
recently.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also a really important part of my process, and the like repetition, revisiting. Um, it's hard to understand outside of like the art world. Like my during lockdown, when I was at my parents' house, and I made a self portrait every day, just of my face, and my dad was like, why are you doing this? Like, you're not going to be selling these. Like, what? Like, but actually, that wasn't his tone. He was like, it's like, what is, like, he was genuinely curious. Like, what, but also, why? Um, and I was like, one, it's really important to make work that you don't think is going to sell. It takes a lot of the pressure off. It keeps me from, I mean, maybe one day people are going to buy my self portraits of like my face like this, but it takes a lot of the pressure off. I'm not doing it thinking I'm going to sell it. And then also when you kind of like I'll return to a motif, subject matter motif,
Right.
over and over and over again. And there's like this little bit of it like becomes a bit mundane. Like even the most beautiful thing, if you go and see it over and over again, you just kind of get used to it. But I will almost kind of force myself to get used to a motif. And right at that point where I'm like, okay, I can't do this any differently. Like I've done this so many times, I've exhausted it. That is inevitably when I shift a little bit, or I pull something, like I pull the rocks in, make them really big, or I like add more people all like right in front of me. I'm thinking of like the beach that I paint on in France because this happened. It's like the most beautiful beach ever. It's so gorgeous. And I was like, I kind of like, I think I painted it like 40 times last summer, literally. And I was like, am I bored of this most beautiful place in the entire world? And then I was like, oh, I'll put more people in it. I'll go like change the proportions. I'll change the blah, blah, blah. And doing that, it there's like it's the same with the flowers. There's like an infinite way to approach a painting. And even if I'm not changing up something like in a really big way, because I am different from the first painting to the second painting, then I myself am bringing something new to the painting.
Yeah.
Woo,
And it's
woo,
like
woo, woo, woo over here.
but it's so true. And it reminds me, and it probably a good segue to kind of talk about how art plays in the world. I mean, like it is the one thing that has translated from every civilization that has ever existed. It has produced art. If there's even not much left of that civilization or those people or whatever, there's art. And so it's a intrinsic to the human experience. And there's this early 20th century rabbi, and there's this quote, and it's just like so profound to me. And the way you're saying in your experience that you're actually capturing the light of creation, like, right? Like, even when it seems so mundane, it seems so like, no, I see this every day. Like, it's the same beach or it's the same whatever. And he said, sorry, I have it right in front of me, but when I lived in London, I would visit the National Gallery and the paintings, and what I loved the most were those of Rembrandt. In my opinion, Rembrandt was a saint. When I first saw Rembrandt's paintings, they reminded me of the rabbinic statement about the creation of light. When God created the light of the first day, it was so strong and luminous that it was possible to see from one end of the world to the other. And God feared that the wicked would make use of it, so what did he do? He secreted it for righteous in the world to come, but from time to time there are great men whom God blesses with the vision of that hidden light. I believe that Rembrandt was one of those, and the light in his paintings is the light in which God created on the day of Genesis. Rabbi Cook. But it's so true about artists. Like, you have, and I'll go out and say it, like a divine gift to capture and see something that is actually like encapsulates creation, light, goodness, like what the earth is. And your work brings it into people's homes, brings it into their lives, brings it into something that they can experience every day, which is a very intrinsic to the human experience. Like, that's what it means to be human. And I think you just like put it into perfect, you like, in my mind, you put his quote into like, this is how an artist does it. When they're sitting there thinking, I'm looking at this flower, I'm looking at this beach, and then I see something that I've got to put it on paper to bring to someone else or to share. And I think that's an amazing gift, an amazing talent. And I don't know if there's something that when you're doing it, do you think of like who would buy this or where it's going or anything like that? Does that ever like come into your mind?
So, if I'm doing it right, no.
Right.
um, there's there are some like there's some things that I paint that like are like that tend to sell. And I sometimes I will go back and paint more of those. Um, but I really try to make my I kind of have a rule that if I paint something and it doesn't sell, then I this is not the right way to say it. I don't allow myself to make a painting if it if at some point if it doesn't sell, then I would feel like I wasted my time. Like if I made a painting because I think it's gonna sell, and then it doesn't, and I'm like, ugh, damn, I can't believe I spent my time doing that, then I shouldn't be making that painting.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is kind of my litmus test a little bit. If I'm when I'm painting, this is exactly this like friction of the keeping the sacred and like keeping
Right.
the money piece. Um, like especially now that I've gone to south of France a few times and people like for instance a good example last summer I made a painting by this old like uh, almost like age of Christ huge aqueduct called the Pont du Gard, and it was built by the Romans in like literally 30 AD.
Wow. Right.
So cool and so humbling. It's
Right.
so big and it's still there, and like literally these men could have had like a 3 degrees of separation to Jesus Christ, literally.
Right.
Like so humbling. And I'm sitting there painting it on a 11 by 14 piece of canvas. Like how do I even do that? How can I get this huge bridge aqueduct onto my page with like in any do it any sort of justice. But I made one painting. It was a very frustrating painting to make because it's so overwhelming, and I was in kind of an uncomfortable position also, and da da da. And it sold like right away, like one of the only ones that summer where I think I posted it on my Instagram, and somebody immediately said I want to buy it. And actually like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people said, do you still have that painting? And it goes to the first person who
Right.
asks. But I've had so many people request that painting again, and I'm like, okay, I did enjoy going. I would like to go back to Pont de Gard, but what I really like doing is going to the beach. So
Right.
I like to go and find my little spots, but I'm like, okay, like going to the Pont de Gard is like, I mean, it's lovely. It's like a little out of the way. It's like, it's not my normal thing. Do I like rent a car and go every day for a week and make like 15 paintings and say, okay,
Knowing they
guys,
will sell. Right.
here they are. And then if they don't sell, like, will I be annoyed because I didn't have my I mean, I can get in the water there. It's a little river thing, but it's a very different experience. There's like a lot of people around. It's a lot of tourists. It's not like my serene, I like sit with some poetry and like eat my baguette and I'm off to the
And
side
you're
and
inspired. Right.
make my
Right.
paintings. Yeah, no is my normal thing. And I mean, I really did love painting at Pont de Gard, but like, would I be going, like, this is where I need to decide. Like, am I going to go back like 20
Are you
times?
going
No.
for the inspiration or are you going to sell paintings? And how do you make that decision? Right.
Exactly. This is my very roundabout way of saying exactly that. And particularly in the summer is where I am, like, if this were in, like, if the Pont du Gard were like in my backyard in the West Village, I would like keep going,
Right.
because it's like I'm here the majority of the year, blah blah blah. There, it's like is this like I don't want to be thinking in like the money making way when I'm
Right.
there.
Like
I
this is
don't
your
I
time to
don't
be
want
inspired.
yeah, it's like to be fully totally inspired. Will I go back to the Pont du Gard? Yes. Am I going to go back 15 times because I think the paintings will sell? No.
Right.
So like you know, and that's the little push and pull, and that's why the time for me, like apparently I need to get out of the continental US to truly be inspired, unfortunately, but that means I'm spending the summers in the South. But anyway, um, but that kind of push pull of where do I, insist that I keep things pure and sacred.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm
mean, I think
still
it's what
figuring
you
out.
said. It's that friction between, it is a business, but it's also the business is your desire and your passion. So where do you draw that line in the sand? And I think, for everyone listening, I think everyone would love to know what is the best way to really get your art, interact with you. How would you tell people to like is the best way to get you on Instagram for your art, or kind of what's the best way to get in contact with you for your art?
It's Instagram is great. I have a newsletter that I send out updates like once or twice a month, sometimes more than that if I'm having. I'll send out like more kind of specific updates if I'm having art shows or something. And if I know that you're in Williamsburg and there's a Williamsburg art show, then I'll
Hmm.
send that. But you shouldn't get that if you live in California, that kind of
Right.
thing, or even Charlottesville.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, Instagram is great. Instagram, I'm like always posting and updating and
And we will connect your
things. And
handle
then,
on here so that everybody can get to you. And um,
great.
just so you know, we'll put that. And and you have a website.
I do have a website, and I do keep it updated.
Perfect. And people
Well
can
done,
buy
me.
from your website all
Oh
the time.
yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and
Well,
then this summer I so I don't do like any admin. I won't update the website until I get back. And then I'm having a show in September of the work from the summer.
wonderful. Well,
Amazing.
we are so grateful that we got to have this time to speak with you and learn more about what you do and share your story, your art with our listeners. And we're so excited for more people to buy your art, to have your art, to have it in their homes as we do. It's inspiring to us. Um, so we just want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so flattering and lovely to see y'all.
This was such a
Well,
great conversation. Thanks so
it
much,
was,
Claire.
it was.
Thank
And
you.
safe travels. Be inspired in France. Eat cheese and baguette for
Thanks.
us.
Don't you worry.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right. Talk to y'all soon.